Welcome back to another edition of PSR Sports Talk here on Penn Sports Radio, and I'm Scott Johnston, the program director for Penn Sports Radio, and happy to be joined by Nate Hunsicker, the boys soccer coach at Northwestern Lehigh. And Nate, it's good to see you. I know it's been a while since you and I last spoke, but I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule today. First and foremost, our first question we always like to ask of our guest is, during this pandemic, how you and your family are doing, and how's everything at the Hunsicker household?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate doing this. My pleasure to take the time. Things have been going well in our household. My wife works in a hospital. She's a pharmacist for St. Luke's, so that was at first, when there was a lot of unknowns with everything, it was a little dicey when she would come and go to work, and she was super extra cautious, obviously not wanting to bring anything home to myself. We had two young boys, but everybody, we made the best of it, just like everybody else, and thankfully everybody stayed healthy. So far, so good. So we're doing well. Thank you.
What are some of the challenges that you faced spending a lot more time with your family than, you probably have before?
Yeah, so I definitely started to get a little bit stir crazy a couple weeks, month plus into it. Being a teacher, obviously I was able to work at home, and I thought Northwestern did a really fantastic job kind of putting together our online curriculum, basically teaching through Zoom, if you will. My personal challenge with that was, in addition to kind of manning the ship for my own class, with my wife working 10, 12-hour days, I was home and I basically had to educate our two young kids too. We had a pre-K and a first grader. So kind of balancing their stuff with my stuff, with everything going on, and making sure they weren't in the background yelling and screaming when I was trying to teach a class or something like that. It definitely made things interesting at time, but we made it work.
We've been doing these Zoom sessions with a lot of the athletic directors and coaches of our partner schools, and I know when we've done these interviews, we were still in the yellow phase here in Lehigh County, and I know just last Friday we moved to that green phase. And for you, today, we're recording this on Monday, you were able to get back at it with your team as far as starting to do workouts. I mean, how did you sleep last night knowing that, we're going to be able to get together back with our team again and start doing workouts? I mean, it had to be a pretty special feeling to wake up this morning.
We did. It was nice. Technically, we could have started last week, but when me and my staff kind of talked it over, and when we were still in yellow, we kind of felt a little uncomfortable starting in that yellow phase with some of the different restrictions and capacity kids and stuff that we could have on the field. So we basically made a consensus agreement that once we went green, that we were going to officially start then. So today was the first day that we were able to get together as a group. We had about 35 kids there, so that's just about everybody that we would anticipate showing up in August for tryouts. Obviously, with a ton of limitations and different rules and guidelines than what we normally would have been accustomed to. But just seeing all the kids, and they were equally as excited to get out there. Even though we did a lot of conditioning today, we definitely had some tired legs, and I think everybody enjoyed it. Though it was nice to have that little bit of normalcy back in our lives.
Now, with the student athletes being off for a number of months due to this pandemic, if you can share with us, what type of shape did the Northwestern Lehigh boys soccer team, as far as the practice today, were these boys in pretty good shape, condition for the upcoming season?
I would say we were pleased with about 75%.
All right. Okay. How happy did that make you, Nate, knowing that you had that percentage of student athletes that were in pretty good shape considering this lockdown we've been in?
We did. It was nice, and we had some Zoom sessions. A while back, probably like early April, I guess, was the first time that we kind of met as a group, when basically we realized all our spring workout sessions are going to go by the wayside. A little bit later after that, we found out that the Lehigh Summer League was canceled, and that was a huge disappointment for everybody. And then as things just continued to creep on beyond into June, and just still that giant cloud of unknown. Referencing back that meeting that we had in April, myself and my staff, we put together like a conditioning and workout plan for the kids. And we said, as far as accountability goes, like a lot of it's just going to kind of fall on you guys. But whenever we are able and allowed to meet again, it'll be very evident who has been and has not been investing in taking this serious and putting the time in. And we were very pleased with the results that we did have today, though. So that was great to see. That was a nice feeling.
Nate, you mentioned about the guidelines, and I know all schools have to follow these strict guidelines, and your athletic director, Jason Zimmerman, has done a great job, and I'm sure coordinating that with all the coaches and student athletes and parents involved with kids that play sports, as well as Lehigh Valley Health Network, which is the provider for Northwestern Lehigh. When you had an opportunity to first see the guidelines, what went through your mind as far as, trying to implement all of these protocols that have to be in place for fall sports workouts to return?
It was really overwhelming. I mean, it's a pretty massive document. So it was definitely a lot to process and digest at first. And I probably read over it, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 times just to kind of make sure that I didn't miss anything, because that at the end of the day, you're responsible for these kids out there, and you don't want to be negligent and you don't want to miss everything. So we really wanted to make sure that we were crossing all our T's, dotting all our I's, keeping everybody safe, but at the same time trying to be as productive as we possibly can when we are out there meeting. And at the end of the day, it's tough because a lot of the kids, even like today, this morning, they're questioning things, and when we're trying to keep them like separated from each other, and they're like, well, like we were at each other's house like yesterday, and like guys, like, listen, like I get that, but like when you're here, like we're following these protocols, and it's the letter of the law, and it's not something that we're gonna deviate from, and they get that, and they were respectful of that. But kind of going back to the 15, 16-year-old version of myself, I could certainly see where they were coming from too.
A number of the other coaches and athletic directors that we've talked to in the past have all mentioned about how accustomed they've been to doing these Zoom sessions. What type of Zoom sessions have you had with your team, and have you found them pretty productive, given the fact that, that's really the type of contact that coaches and athletic directors are using, as far as using Zoom, or you could possibly text or phone calls, but I'm finding that Zoom has been pretty effective.
Sure. I mean, the nice thing about Zoom was, in terms of, doing like a text, email chain or something like that, was, everybody's hearing the same message at the same time. And if somebody has a question live and in the moment, they can ask that and get that immediate feedback. And then, maybe other people would have that exact same question, and then they can get that immediate feedback and that answer as well. We didn't do a whole lot with Zoom, other than just kind of holding a couple check-in meetings and going over different things like workout plans and checking in with kids, if they have any questions or concerns about everything. Updating them on for a long time, the little that we even knew, reaching out in terms of things like, the Summer League getting canceled. But it definitely has been a nice tool for us to have in our back pocket. And, God forbid something like this happens again and we got to go down this path again, we can, at least be a little bit more familiar with it and comfortable with it.
Talking with Nate Hunsicker, the boys soccer coach of Northwestern Lehigh. This is Scott Johnston, program director for Penn Sports Radio. Continuing our PSR Sports Talks here on Penn Sports Radio. Nate, I wanted to ask you, with all the guidelines that have been put in place, and it seems like around the country we're seeing rising cases of COVID. Pennsylvania has done a pretty good job in containing this, but we have seen a little bit of a surge over the last couple days. How optimistic are you that we're going to see fall sports return beginning August 17th when the first official practice date starts.
Yeah, I'd be lying to say that I wasn't nervous at all. I like to use the phrase that I'm cautiously optimistic that we're at least going to get things started. However, I also would be lying if I wasn't gravely concerned that we might not get to see the season all the way through. Which honestly, like, I feel really bad for like winter sports, especially those where basketball, like, kind of like right in the midst of the state tournament. That
Right.
that what if for like all those coaches and teams and the players. Like, I can't imagine, like, being in that scenario. And obviously for spring sports, that really stank for them, not even being able to get to play their season. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think we will be able to get things started. I really hope and pray that we're able to see the season through the conclusion. Which, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, and we're still waiting to see what exactly we're going to be doing as far as what does school even look like, and depending what that ends up shaking out to be, do they even allow fall sports to play? I don't think there's been any concrete answers to those questions quite yet either. So I think, like we had the opportunity today to be able to kind of get out there and practice, that's definitely a nice step in the right direction, but, we still have a long, long, long way to go to, be back where everybody really wants to go.
And looking back on last year, Nate, that was your ninth season at Northwestern Lehigh. You've had so much success there. I believe you were trying to go for your fifth straight Colonial League title, and you wound up winning the district championship. You were the number 4 seed. You knocked off Saucon Valley 4-1 in the first round, and then you also defeated the top seed Blue Mountain 2-0, and then defeated Southern Lehigh 1-0 in the finals. When you have an opportunity to look back on last year's team, what sticks out to you? What are some of your fond memories of that squad?
Just the tenacity and the fighting spirit that those boys brought. The season prior to last year, we lost a lot of really key pieces. A lot of guys that carried a lot of the weight for us, and especially on the offensive end of things. And we had a lot of question marks, to be honest, going into last season. We had a lot of really important pieces to fill. And things didn't look great when we got the season started. We suffered, in my opinion, a really embarrassing loss to Wilson, our turf home opener, which everybody was super excited for. And the first 90 seconds in that game could not have gone any worse from us if we went behind 2-0 in like the first about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and but we fought back. Unfortunately, I think we ended up losing that game 3-2, and we had a lot of question marks at that point in time, and we moved a lot of people around to different places, and we kind of got a little unorthodox with things, and I think there was a little bit of initial resistance to some of those moves, but once people started to see this success with it and that things were working, we got the ball rolling. It really started to click. We ended up having that awesome home game against Moravian Academy where we thrashed them. It was either 5-0 or 5-1. I can't remember quite exactly. I know we scored 5, and we knew we would see them again at some point in time. And got to tip my hat to Coach Hartman. He also made a lot of adjustments from that game. A lot of people to different places when we saw them in the semifinals at leagues, and we got a little unlucky in that we had a miscommunication that led to the goal. Seconds after that, we had the opportunity to get the equalizer with the PK, and we missed that. We just couldn't find the net on that night. It just wasn't our night. But Moravian played. They had a great game plan. They played a great match that night, and that night, right then and there, I knew we would be playing for the district title, and we made a heck of a run through that tournament. That game against Southern Lehigh, probably one of the 5 best games that I've been a part of in my 9-year career, and obviously the way that it finished off with Jeff Garcia off that throw-in from Ryan Baker, taking the one hop and just biking it and burying it in the upper corner. Just the elation that everybody had after that ball struck the back of the net was just incredible. And then even following that first game in the state tournament, not sure if you're aware of it or not, he made a very similar bike
Right.
to kick us off 1-0 in that game too, and everybody was kind of on cloud nine at that moment. But they were a heck of a squad, and we had to play a absolutely perfect game to beat them, and they had ultimately edged us out 2-1. But I was just so proud of the kids' effort last year and their no quit attitude and just how hard they worked to ultimately end up from the product that we started the year with to the championship team that we ended up being at the very end.
You referenced that game during the regular season against Moravian Academy at home, and we covered that game live on Penn Sports Radio. And I know myself, along with Ray Canaveri, who was on the call of that game, we were so impressed with your team winning that game 5-0. Safe to say that was arguably your team's best game of the year from start to finish?
For sure. I think Moravian came in there maybe slightly undervaluing us, and they didn't realize just how capable of a squad we had. But by that point in the season, that was kind of right when things people were starting to get comfortable and click with their new place. We scored 2 goals off of Ryan Baker throw-ins. He just has a missile from the sideline. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's more dangerous than when we get a corner kick. I'd almost rather have a throw-in down from the end there. And we shell shocked them with some goals, and we played a solid 80 minutes of soccer.
I mentioned earlier, Nate, that your program has had so much success. Why is it that Northwestern Lehigh boys soccer has been able to sustain just the consistency and success? Does it really start at the younger level with the feeder program, or what is it?
I think it's a lot of different things. I mean, I think the feeder program is really important. I know, I'm heavily involved with that right now personally with my 2 young boys. We have a lot of kids though. Once they kind of reach like upper elementary, younger middle school ages, they kind of branch out to some of the local clubs like Western Lehigh or like an LVU or something like that. I just think this area is such a soccer-rich neck of the woods, if you will, boys and girls. And, it's just something where I think over time now the success starts to breed more success. And I know for like each senior class, at least kind of going over this last 5 years, 6-year stretch for us, they don't want to be that group of seniors that walks away without a gold medal their senior year. And I think even last year, that group, when we lost in leagues, they're like, hey, we still got districts yet. That's our shot. We're winning that tournament. Like, I'm not leaving my senior year without a gold medal, because I just saw for 3 other years prior to me, every other senior got to walk away with that. And they saw like how sweet of an ending that was to their high school soccer career. And, it really drives them, and they want that for themselves as well.
Wrapping up our session here with Nate Hunsicker, the boys soccer coach of Northwestern Lehigh, here on PSR Talks on Penn Sports Radio. And Nate, you're entering your 10th season now there at Northwestern Lehigh. Give us a little preview of what you expect. Should there be a fall sports season with some of the returning talent as well as some of the newcomers?
Sure. We definitely bring back a lot of key pieces. But just like the season before, we had a lot of seniors that played a lot of significant roles for us. A couple of key players that we're really looking forward to, in either kind of like a midfield or a striker position. Jeff Garcia, our ESPN top 10 guy. Ryan Baker, he was one of the kids last year who started the year at defense, made a giant transition to go from a defender to an offensive player. He's kind of our Swiss Army knife. We're not quite sure as of right now. We have him penciled back to move back to defense. But we could, obviously the season could adjust with that. Colin Caulfield's, he's coming into his junior year. I think that's going to be a name that people are going to hear a lot. Josh Zellner, I think, is going to be someone that's going to turn a lot of heads. He was he was a freshman last year, and when we were really struggling to score some goals, the Saucon Valley game, we moved him up. And he was inches away from about 45 seconds into his first varsity action, netting a game winner in overtime. He just raced off the top left upright. He was a little snake bit in a couple games after that, but I think he still ended the season with a handful of goals. I think he had 6 or 7 goals, and then unfortunately he got hurt. We didn't have him available to us towards the end of the season. There, I think that could have, additionally help make a big difference for us offensively. But we definitely have some kids that I think, again, we're going to be a nice blend of experience and inexperience, and those inexperienced kids are certainly very capable, and they're very interested and excited to make a name for themselves.
Do you think heading into the Colonial League, you're going to have the bullseye once again on your back, or possibly the defending champs, Moravian Academy or Southern Lehigh? It always seems like there's that group of 4 or 5 teams that are just consistently up near the top.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tightly contested core group between Moravian, us, Southern, Saucon. Wilson returns 2 of their strong players, so I don't think they're going to be anyone to sleep on. I know outside of their top 2 players, though, they were pretty senior-laden group. So as far as role pieces around those 2 guys up top for them, the verdict will be out on that. But I really think it's going to be, those 4 teams that I just mentioned. For the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's predominantly been the 4 of us kind of fighting for top dog. I know a lot of us, like every year, you lose a couple seniors, but I think us and Moravian, if I had obviously I'm not being biased there or whatever, but I think we would be the two favorites coming into league play.
Well, we plan on covering a number of your games live on Penn Sports Radio like we did last year, and
awesome.
We're thrilled to cover the athletic teams at Northwestern Lehigh, from your boys soccer team to the girls soccer, as well as football. In the wintertime, we did a number of basketball games, both the girls and boys. I know the boys have a new coach in Jerry Lloyd, and we were looking forward to doing the spring sports season because the baseball team had really high expectations. And
yes.
the softball team, I believe, was pretty young too. And then, of course,
yes.
you have a startup program in girls and boys lacrosse. So we're disappointed that those seasons got canceled, but, fall sports is going to be here before you know it.
Sure will. Yep. And we appreciate all the coverage. I know the kids, they love the coverage. I know for a lot of extended family of the kids and stuff like that, they enjoy tuning in and listening to clips of the game. I like going back and I listen to the games that you guys call. I think I listened to that Moravian game 2 or 3 times. But we really appreciate the coverage. It means a lot to us. For sure.
Absolutely. And my final question for you, Nate, I mentioned about all the success that you've had there at the school. Tell us a little bit about your coaching staff, because obviously this whole thing isn't successful just based off of you. You probably have a very good coaching staff in place, and that's a reason why you've had so much success there.
Absolutely. My right-hand man, he's actually my cousin, Derek Reinert. He's been my JV coach since year 2. So he's pretty much been there since the beginning. He is a lifesaver for me. He puts in so much time, just as much time as I do, if I'm being very honest, if not more. He's just so passionate about what we do. And he's there day in, day out. We're a great sounding board for each other, bouncing ideas. And, he likes the fact that I'm open to his ideas. I'm not that, totalitarian kind of guy where it's my way or the highway. I like to be open and listen to different ideas. And so he's a huge asset for our program. The kids love him. Josh Gross is another one of our coaches. He's actually been there since year 1 with me. He helps run the JV squad. And then Mike Koenig, he's our 4th coach. In the past, he was generally our strength and conditioning guy. And obviously, unfortunately, this year we weren't able to get in the weight room at all summer. So his greatest asset, we weren't really able to take advantage of as much. But those 3 guys, I appreciate everything they do to help me out and help our program out. And I know the kids do as well.
And also, I wanted to mention that we were talking off air before coming on, and you and your wife had an opportunity to finally get away and celebrate a 10-year wedding anniversary. Tell us a little bit about your trip.
We did. So we were May 18th, better not get the date wrong, was our 10-year wedding anniversary this past May. And obviously with all the COVID stuff going on, we weren't able to go. We had to stay at a bed and breakfast in Virginia. couple weeks ago, the lady who runs the bed and breakfast there reached out to my wife and said, "Hey, things are kind of opening up in Virginia. Would you guys still be interested in coming?" And we were obviously comfortable with doing that. And it was a fantastic time. I was sharing with you, Scott, that I'm a history buff, so my wife settled with me. We obviously Virginia is a very history-rich state with Civil War stuff. I was able to get to do and experience some of those things as well. So that was nice.
Well, I'm glad you and your wife had an opportunity to get away, and
Thank you.
now back to reality with
Yes,
back home in Nutripoli, and soccer is right around the corner. So Nate, I want to really thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to covering the Tigers coming up this fall, and let's keep our fingers crossed that we are going to see a fall sports season. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think it's going to happen. So let's just hope we get there.
Me too. Well, thank you so much for having me, Scott. It was my pleasure.
All right, that's Nate Hunsicker, the boys soccer coach at Northwestern Lehigh, joining us today on PSR Talks here on Penn Sports Radio.